Oh, my son-in-law, when he installed it and wired it in, it's not the kind that comes back. In the basement wall, you have turn off number one on the sunshade line, turn on number two, and then go up, then turn on. No, you have to push it. Oh, okay. Now I'm gonna let you start.
It's wonderful to see such a full room. Welcome everyone. Today we'll have aquascaping demo, something really special. Johnathon Butkus over here is setting up right now. In the meantime, I want to welcome obviously all of you, and especially any new members or anyone who is the first time here. Who's here for the first time, if you don't mind raising your hand?
That's Jonathan.
Wow. Yeah, me welcome again. Can I ask you, how did you find us and what are you keeping?
YouTube or no, I Googled, I Googled Aquarium Society, Sacramento. I've been out of the hobby for 50 years. I just bought a 125 gallon tank.
Nice.
I'm trying to reinforce my floor. And then I'm going to be setting it up to go totally old school with an underground filter.
Oh,
Nice. Good for you. And you are just going along with Phil? Yeah. We all have someone like that at home. Yeah, my wife has plans. That's what I use as my excuse. I'm like, well, I get space for tanks. Well, welcome back to fish keeping. We hope to have you.
I'm going to buy everything.
You're not the only one. I think I saw someone back there. It's you guys first time too? Okay, what do you keep and how did you find us? Community.
Yeah, the community in there. We heard this now.
Thank you, Carol. Very loyal member, Carol. Well, welcome. I think I saw a few more hands raised over here. If you're too shy, you don't have to. Someone can point it out over there. It's your first time? Okay. Well, we're not pressuring anyone. If anyone wants to share how they found us and what they're keeping, you have to.
I heard about you guys. I used to work at the fish store at Citrus Heights, like we're in Depot. And then mostly African cichlids, Tanganyikans. And then my wife here, she keeps betas and live bears.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good mix. We have a lot of all of those.
Yeah, yeah. Orchid.
And set over there. And yeah, to any new members, we'll have pizzas coming in, and we love Roundtable. They let us be here every month. So tip them well and raise your hand when your number on your pizza is called out. And then I want to do a quick roll call for the board. I'm Nico. I'm the vice president. We have Luke over here, who's the president. We have Modesta, secretary back there, and Joey, the treasurer, back there. And then on the board, we have Joe, we have Matt, we have Aaron, we have Jan over there, we have Jessica, oh sorry, that got lost. And then we have Larry, who is not here today, and we have Justin and Jason that are not here today, I think.
it's Eleanor's birthday.
And it's Eleanor's birthday, so we're missing out on everyone's favorite auctioneer. Happy birthday, Eleanor. She shall be forgiven. And for not being here on her birthday,
It's a little.
pizza party.
She can watch it.
It's right there.
Yeah. Also, everyone's favorite provider of candy, Oliver, brought in cupcakes over there, so everyone go get your cupcakes. I also mentioned that we have a pretty full silent auction over there, and we also have a pretty good raffle table over there with gift cards for local stores and pretty cool sets. If you have a banner or something, you can set up a full tank with the log, with food, with water conditioner, everything. Then just also real quick about this presentation. we'll have the demo obviously of how to set up this tank, but the tank will also be auctioned off. We got some donations through Jonathan himself, but also through Luke organized a few things of it and the club purchased some. And so this tank will be available later, as well as some of the macroalgae that we'll be talking about. For any of you that don't know what macroalgae is, you learn about it, but it does need some salt. And don't be intimidated by that. We have pre-measured salt available if you want to try a small tank before it's fed. So you'll learn about that, and then in the auction, you'll be able to also get some. And then before we continue with the presentation, Eric has something he wanted to talk about.
Hi, everybody. This is a weird request. It's something I'm asking of you. In late November, I'm going to Norway to speak at a conference of aquarium keepers at their 50th anniversary convention. And they have asked me to bring life bearers to donate to their auction for them to sell in their meeting, because they have trouble getting wild type live bearers. So I don't raise live bearers. If you know me, I'm a catfish person. I have all catfish. So I'm putting out a request to you. If you are a person who's breeding live bearers, in particular wild type live bearers, and especially if you have locality on them, and if you wouldn't mind considering either donating some or selling to me for cheap, I will compile a list of species, go back to the club in the next month or so, tell them what we have access to, see what they actually want me to bring, and then figure out what fits in my suitcase. And I will get back to you. Okay, so if you're interested in participating in that, come and see me or email me. I'm also on Facebook, and I'm on the SAS group and band and stuff like that. So thank you if you can help, and thank you even if you can't. Thanks for listening. All right, let's enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Yeah, I got some definitely no locality on the Sinataka Island.
Are you just?
Okay, Sinataka Island is all I got. One thing we like to talk about real quick, did anything interesting happen in any of your fish rooms? Oh, everyone's scared now.
The power bill one.
Let us know.
Power bill.
Mailed my right up the albino flecos, and apparently two of the babies are spawned. Now I've got little mini babies you can have.
Oh. It always feels nice. I love the little baby players. Anton?
So I set up a new tank that I got completely for free. 120-gallon acrylic tank. A lot of people thought it was a scam, but it was just an elderly couple that communicates only through email. And so I went and picked it up, and I spent like 2 hours with them. They just showing me all their plants in their house, and I had to like melt out of the door. Well, long story short, I ended up killing like 12 fish. I did a water change on that tank, and they added something to the water where I live. I don't know if it was like chloramine or what, but wiped out like a large group of Cyprotromus that I had, a mature group. So, but Patrick Sexton helped me out to get some more of them. So, yeah,
That's the nice thing about the fish club. Someone else from it has fish too.
yeah.
I got, now that my tanks are dropped down into the mid to low 50s, everything's gone. So I don't have anything tonight, but I'll have lots of minnows and shiners and stuff coming up.
Very nice. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, last month I was lucky enough to win the auction on Richard's electric steel cars. Yesterday morning I woke up and I had about 50 people being.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe I'll speak on that real quick. Richard's fish last month were very successful. I have a few more. I had more Plecos still at home than I wanted to, but he had a lot of them, and I made a mistake. I was like, I have so many Plecos, they're sitting on top of each other. I need to give them a cave or something. Well, they didn't have a structure. So after many weeks of waiting for them to come out, I finally tied a rope around the cage and hung it above a bucket, and after 3 hours, the last one finally came out. So there's a few more Plecos here today. I don't Luke have to talk about it if you're busy, but he bought the Darkensia from Richard and also had a pretty large spawn of girls. So
Pretty small spawns.
I guess for that specific fish, a small spawn, but still over 100 fry, I think. So
Nice.
thanks.
I was looking for a new puffer to get for my, I have 14 aquariums now. And, yeah, I know. I ended up at, Aquarium Depot and I saw this Mubu puffer and thought, oh, that'll be great. And I asked them a little fit at 130 and they're like, yeah, I bring it home and do some more research. Come to find out it really needs more like a 300. So I went and bought a 240. So I've got an empty 240 that I'm gonna move it from the 130 it's in now to this 240. And so I'm excited. He is a voracious eater. And it's been interesting just watching him grow. He's only yay big now, but he'll get this big. So
Yeah, I have one puffer. I went for a smaller one. I got a Bailey, I think, the hairy puffer.
Oh, they're
They
still.
don't need that much space. They just sit like a potato. And yeah, the hairy puffer, I mean, it gets really excited when it sees me. I don't really have any fish like that. I don't have big cichlids. I'm not a community tank. I don't have any fish that freak when I walk in the room. Like he'll spit stuff at me. He gets really grumpy when I mess with him. Like at one time I found some, like I like to feed him insects and stuff, and so I found some caterpillar in the backyard. And I threw it in and it had been eating some leaves he didn't like. So he got grumpy and started spitting water at me. There's something to it, but I mean, most of the time it just sits there. I recommend, it sounds weird, but I have a small tank with a big canister filter, big flow. In nature, there, I think from the Mekong, from one of the big rivers, and they just sit in the bottom of the river and don't do anything all day. And so I'm kind of replicating that in a small tank with a big canister filter. It's like 15, 20. The puffer itself is much, but it doesn't move.
Yeah.
It only comes out when I come out, and it's a
Come on.
just waits till something runs in front of its face. It's nice. Definitely a lot.
Like Cartman.
Yeah, if you like puffers, you can definitely talk to Jan. She also does. And then one last story that I had is that I have a tree in the backyard that keeps throwing little stuff in my pond. So during certain seasons, I put sheets over it. And I have a turtle in one of the ponds. I was a little worried that maybe it could climb onto one of those sheets, climb out of the pond. So in the winter it's cold. I've been a little worried, but nothing seemed to indicate. But then lately I've been hearing sounds around the yard, and I was like, damn, do we have maybe rats or something? What's going on? And then yesterday, 2 days ago, my wife sends me a picture. Our dog freaked out and found the turtle sitting in the middle of the backyard. So it's been out probably for 2 weeks. Don't worry too much about your turtles, they're fine for that. So how are we looking? Okay. Luke, do you want to give him a quick introduction?
Cool. Yes.
I don't need to. That'll be okay. I'll yell. So this is Johnathon Butkus, everyone. I met him a couple years ago at in Chicago for the Aquatic Gardener Association, and we've chatted a couple times off and on. Earlier this year, we got a little more serious about getting him in here for today, and as you can tell, we've got a little bit beyond the normal talk. So thanks also to the various people that sponsored things and made everything happen. Thanks for coming. He works for OASA, and I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit more about that. And for a few years now, he's been doing freshwater and macroalgae scapes, kind of traveling around. Today we are doing macroalgae, and hopefully we all learn a lot. I know that we're not really salt-based club, but this is our first foray into saltwater planted aquariums, which we do like here, so.
Eric, one question?
Is anyone here tonight from Mars?
We're in an aquarium.
You know, last time I checked, I think I came here, I don't know. Well, they probably.
People are talking.
Okay, before we let him go, Modesta will be angry if I don't do this. I forgot about this. I have 4 names of people that if you're here, please come. She's got names first. Okay. The names that I have, if your name is called and you're here, go to Modesta. She has something for you. It's David Long, Keith Holbrook, Lara Kirubin, and Cody Carroll. And on that note, I'll turn on your microphone.
Hello.
That's good.
And don't necessarily have a voice for radio, so we're gonna give this a go. I'm gonna switch over here real quick. We're gonna kind of split this into 2 parts, okay? So I'm gonna give you a little brief introduction, just so I can show you what I've done in the hobby as well too, and we can now call ourselves friends after this. Then we'll do the presentation of what is a macroalgae tank and how do you keep them. And then we'll do the actual live demo aspect and such. So it'll be cool. And today this tank is going home with someone. So that could be you. It has everything that you'll need to get started and whatnot. So all you do is go home, fill it with the salt water, and you have yourself a really cool marine planting tank. And I'll tell you why that's cool in a little bit. Just to get started here, I want to introduce myself a little bit. So again, we can call ourselves friends. This is me at about maybe 2 hours old. I got a lot of dad jokes today, so I hope you don't get not a bad when I cat dad, but that's about it. So we're gonna go through this. It may be a little painful from time to time. But I grew up in northern Illinois. Laura? Your order is done. Your pepperoni pizza is ready to go. Yeah, good choice, good choice. Awesome. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in outside of Chicagoland area and such. So I definitely know how to drive, right? Not for joking. And then I went to school in Wisconsin for aquatic biology and minor in aquaculture. So I went through my college days, doing aquaculture projects such as this. Not as exciting as a bunch of glass tanks, but there are walleye and perch in them. So it's I promise it's a little more exciting when you open those lids. And then doing some aquaponics projects, things of that nature as well too. Excuse me. As you can tell, I was quite the ladies' man in college by the shirt and the giant pleco at our university fifth room and whatnot. But whilst at university, I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii, where I worked my butt off chopping off invasive Himalayan ginger, and when I wasn't in class and studying really hard, and definitely not having a couple of years in hand, I was on the far left over there cleaning out ponds and doing aquarium maintenance for one of the local companies in that area. While going through school and after school, are any of you involved in the sciences, or are you? What do you do? Yeah.
I work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Okay.
Green class.
That's awesome. So we've
Yeah, a
got.
couple of fish professors in here that do fish stuff too as well.
And I think all those of us that have been in that industry can understand that going through the class 1 jobs, the class 2 jobs for a minimum wage and checking invasive species off of boats is not necessarily the most enthralling thing, but it is necessary experience, right? I didn't necessarily follow suit with that. I kind of stuck in the aquarium industry. It sucks you in, spits you out, rag tag, and I'm just joking. You have a good time. But did a lot of things, and then while I was in school, we did a lot with native fish too. So that's kind of one of my big loves as far as aquarium hobby goes. Here we are doing some sand apples and some glacial lakes. And while I was doing aquarium maintenance, you gotta keep things interesting and whatnot. So that was a big 500-gallon tank that we were doing an install on. worked on many different types of systems, a lot of reef tank systems, putting Schedule 80 plumbing through someone's four-story house mansion on the overlook of a lake. Very nerve-wracking, trying not to flood a multi-million-dollar house. I'll tell you that much. Good thing we had insurance. And just worked on different reef systems. We did planted tanks as well too. With maintenance, that tends to be kind of tricky. You're only there once a month, so imagine trying to keep it looking nice to some extent. So plant choice is key. And get done with college and keep working in the aquarium industry, but at the same time did some competition. So everyone starts somewhere with aquascaping, and this was why I started with aquascaping specifically. And it's a little event that we had up in Madison, Wisconsin. Had some great opportunities to go check out some cool places like the Rio Napo in Peru. Going through collecting some different fish, wild neons, seeing those in the wild, and orchids and all that kind of fun stuff. And then getting my leg hairs pruned for my monthly waxing session with the Buenos Aires tetras and Belize, right? So, and then on the right side there, you've got a wonderful North American native, the orange throat darter. That's a colored up male in early April when the water is 50 degrees. And it just turned from 45 to 50 degrees, which caused, that temperature swing gets in spawning condition. Then I went through plant phase, so, collectoritis, like we all get, right? You want a little bit of everything. A lot of immersed plants, submerged plants, just doing that whole thing. And what's better than doing freshwater plants while doing freshwater plants and saltwater plants, aka macroalgae, right? Which aren't quite, I guess the debate of algae and plants is a whole other thing. And then nowadays, all I do is collect rusty tanks from the 1960s and say I'm going to refurbish them. But here I am with a stack of 50, 75, or about 75, like 10s, 20s, et cetera, around the Philadelphia basement toilet floating in the middle of the concrete room. So we'll get to that eventually. Maybe we'll see each other again at some point with something regarding that. But the coolest thing about working in the industry, in my opinion, is you get to meet some great people. And same thing like I'm meeting you all today. So whether it's a bunch of different folks from the industry while you're going out collecting, on the far right here, Dennis in the middle there is up in Seattle, and we're going to see some of his tanks in the presentation here today. We're going out collecting with some other folks, seeing some cool fish, getting into it with other plants, geeks and whatnot. You see some cool people, and it wouldn't be possible without this one. So she's the one that allows it all. So thanks to her. I'm here today to help present, and we're going to switch on over. So the main topic for today. There we go.
Before you get started, can I ask you something about the metaframe tanks?
Yeah, far away.
You know why they have slate bottoms?
Originally it was because you put a candle underneath and heat it that way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So any temperature difference with glass or anything like that would cause a crack, especially if it's cold already and whatnot. Yeah, and it's cool because the rock could heat up, you wouldn't have a fracture, and it was a way for it to stay stable in the sleep. So there's quite a few of them that are intact as well too. So, how many of you keep saltwater tanks? We got one. Awesome. Two. We'll get a round of applause for those brave soldiers, right? And what are you keeping currently in those tanks?
Have a fracture. Sorry, saltwater is fish only fly rock. But I also have a sort of a mini reef. It's a 33 long. And I've got it's a mixed reef. Okay. So I have some leathers and glances and sea turtles. Trying to go for that mix in there. Fish hands.
Do you have any herbivorous fish in there?
Not really. In the Fowler, I would say my box face. Probably the closest.
Well, it sounds like you got a perfect candidate for a tank to have a mixed fish tank, but also even more mixed with some macroalgae after this demo. So we've got some up here that we probably won't be using them all, that you take some home from the auction and whatnot. And the other person over there, I'm sorry, where are you?
Talk to you real quick.
Yeah.
Just for everyone, since you just mentioned it and I forgot earlier, whatever we don't use for the demo today,
come see me if you would like to purchase and start doing macros. I have some salt weighed out for you to start doing it and like fill up a tank tonight. You won't need to go to a fish store or anything and get water.
How many of you have kept easy plants like Anubias, Bucephalandria, mosses and stuff? Fantastic. And all of you can keep macroalgae. That's the kind of fun part about tonight. We have a variety of different, some of the more easy species. We got a couple that are a little bit higher end, but most of them are going to be pretty easy tonight. We'll send some around the room so you guys can all get hands on them and see what they're like and whatnot. It's pretty cool. But yeah, there's one other person with saltwater tank. Yeah. Well, for those of you that haven't, yes.
I used to keep, I'm a trimix certified, except deep water. You'd be surprised at 250, 300 feet, how many macroalgae live down there.
All the red ones too, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So those of you that aren't familiar with saltwater tanks or have always kind of wondered, how many of you have wanted to have a saltwater tank? Let me ask that question. What is it? Is it the bright colored fish? Is it the corals? Just the wild look to them? It's pretty cool, right? Being able to have some clownfish in your own home is a pretty crazy thing, all in all. Well, I'm here to tell you today that macroalgae tanks give you the opportunity to not break the bank, while also being to keep some of these beautiful, fish and even sometimes corals in the tank that's still beautiful and easy to take care of. Especially when these macroalgae are doing essentially the same functions as plants are with removing nutrients and things of that nature that make your life a little bit easier as well too. So this is what we mostly think of when we think of an algae, right? It happens and we're a little cropped out, but we'll see if this works. But if typically when you think of algae, that's what you think, right? You don't really think of a beautiful tank per se, and especially with us in freshwater, it's a little bit different. So, you can have a pretty awesome tank with macroalgae and such that looks something more like this. And this is kind of what we're going to create roughly today or something of this nature, right? You've got these beautiful colors, contrasting textures, with your freshwater plants, you've got like Aponogeton, those crinkly, tall leaves, beautiful flowers popping out of the surface, right? You've got Anubias nana and all your Bucephalandria species and darker color leaves that you can contrast against it. I'm going to show of hands, how many of you are really big into plants? Okay, so another group of people, that's going to be a perfect opportunity to try some of these things later tonight. So just to give you an idea, right? It doesn't look too different from like a nice planted tank in a sense, right? Like, a little bit different, but not too crazy different.
Question?
Yeah.
In that picture, how many of those plants are algae?
They all are.
They are all algae?
All of them. Yes, all of them are macroalgae.
Holy cow, man.
Yeah, and we'll go over that in a minute. So just to give you some more ideas and inspiration here, this is one done by Dennis up in Seattle. He does really amazing tanks, very clean, very neat. Here's a beautiful one. There's a gentleman out of St. Louis, Tyler Wells, who also does some really interesting tanks, specifically a lot with mangroves as well too. So even though he has mangroves protruding, which can also be kept in freshwater, mind you, he also has a bunch of macroalgae in there. Here's another like Courtney, who does another beautiful, almost looks like a garden style aquascape, that kind of deal. So bright colors, contrasting reds, greens, purples. Here's another one I put up for one of the trade shows. So you can see it's a little bit of a mix of corals and macroalgae throughout the tank as well too. And that's just like a freshly set up one, so it's not fully grown in. Then you've got even more examples, a little bit more of a high-end look by Alex up in Canada, up in Toronto. She did a fantastic job. But again, clownfish, nice macros, just to give you guys some ideas of what's possible in here, right? So nothing really too crazy different than like doing like a bunch of, probably a little bit more colorful, right? Some of your like Anubias only tanks, things of that nature. You got a lot more textures and colors to play with. Here's another small one. Pretty much the same footprint, same size that we're going to do today, to give you a little bit of an idea. And one last one from up in Seattle. Just some really cool stuff. And one last one from Dennis. And then you got Tyler still. And he even has driftwood in his. And here's one that I put together for the Aquatic Gardeners Association. We did this talk as well too, to a room full of hardcore plant people that turn their nose up at saltwater a lot. So if they can bring some macroalgae in their life, I think it's possible for everyone here to as well too, and try out that bulgogi shrimp pair you wanted to try, or try that clownfish pair in that thing. So traditional use of macroalgae in tanks, primarily, they were never really seen as super ornamental for the most part. For the two of you in the back that have the saltwater tanks, primarily when you thought of macroalgae, you thought of the sump filtration and putting them down there to absorb the nutrients in your fish only with live rock, and then you put some of that in your display for your fox face to eat or whatever the case was. They were always seen as like a nutrient export, not so much an addition to the tank. That's until the late 80s, early 90s, people started seeing some of the more decorative varieties coming from the Caribbean, things of that nature. And they started making them into some of the reef systems that they were doing and whatnot, letting them grow amongst corals as well too. Aside from that, there wasn't too much of a consistent allotment of people kind of putting things together specifically like this. So the reason why you'd like to aquascape with algae is kind of what I just showed you, right? You have a variety of different colors, variety of different shapes, variety of textures, and also they're easily propagated. So when you split your anubias in half, right? You're splitting the rhizome. How many of you have done that? Just to split things apart, or you're splitting apart your Amazon sword, and same concept with macroalgae. And we'll come back to this. You're going to be having to deal with a rhizome and roots, the same that an anubias has, right? So same concept as far as how a lot of these spread and form, or they'll have a holdfast or a single point where they just kind of grow onto it. So most of the macroalgae, with exception of a couple that do have formal roots, can just be latched on or glued on or attached onto the rockwork, and they'll grow out nice, bushy, and puffy from there that you can then split apart and spread throughout your tank until you have those nice lush mats going throughout your tank. As far as the similarities between freshwater and saltwater, right? How many of you remineralize your own water for your freshwater planted tanks? Like you do RODI water, or you're doing that for your Achilles. Like, is your tap water here pretty hard? Like liquid rock, like us back in Chicago? No, it's pretty soft, average. You can use tap water for most everything, right? Okay, so you got a leg up on me then. That's more than I could say. We're in the cyclic though, right? There's a reason why we call it that. It's because our trap water comes out with a pH of 8.6, and the KH is not even registerable on the chart. It's like 24 plus on the, yeah, it's rough. Even more rough is going to sometimes do RODI for pretty much everything. But if you are doing RODI and you're already doing that for some of your plants, things like that, it's not too different than what you're doing for saltwater, right? The major difference being is you are just mixing salt the same that you would a remineralization agent to get your water parameters to where they need to be. That's pretty much it. Outside of that, saltwater is not very spooky. Obviously fish prices, things like that get a little high, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're just doing a small nano tank like this, you can have a wonderful setup for roughly the same price as any of the kind of like nicer rimless planted tank, nano tank setups as well too. But in a nutshell, the nutrients are going to be the same. You're still dosing for, plants are going to eat nitrates, they're going to eat phosphates, they're going to eat other macronutrients. You're still dealing with the same nitrogen cycle for the most part. Maintenance is very similar. Weekly water change to replenish some of those nutrients and minerals. Lighting is surprisingly very similar. For those of you who kept reef tanks, you know that corals need pretty high intense lighting depending upon species. You also need that really blue light. Well, for macros, you're looking at the same type of plant light that you would use for a freshwater plant tank as you would for macroalgae. They photosynthesize very similarly, so they're going to need a similar output on that. But yeah, that's in a nutshell. There's a bunch of other points as well too, but we've kind of gone over some of them. So as far as the biology goes, we talked briefly about it, but there are basically three different groups of macroalgae. There's the brown, the red, and the green macros. And within those, some of them have different care requirements. You can think of the red macroalgae as more of your slow-growing Bucephalandria or Anubias. They don't grow terribly fast. They will grow though, and they typically mostly adhere via a holdfast rhizome. Your green algae have a lot of your oblongs. It has a lot of your chloroplasts, things like that, that are rooted and are very fast and vigorous growing. They're green. They typically are found in really shallow water, reef or tide pool environments. So they're very close to the sun or in shallow water. So there's high light penetration, and so therefore they can grow pretty quickly. And then you have your brown algae as well too that are found in a variety of different conditions. Macro meaning large. So when you're talking algae, macroalgae are pretty much like essentially a single cell, as opposed to your tiny little microalgae, which is what covers our glass that we don't really like to see, right? So that's the big distinguishing difference between them. As we talked about, have rhizomes and other mechanisms for holding on. Here's an example of just showing some of the different colorations and from the top when it fills in. I mean, same thing with the plant tank. You look at it from the top, right? It's absolutely gorgeous when it's fully filled in, lush. You know, all your rotellas are doing their thing, all that fun stuff, right? With reproduction for them, like we talked about, you can just split them apart, and by fragmentation, you can grow and trim and give some macroalgae to your friend or trade them with each other, things of that nature. And then also through sporulation events. It's sometimes you'll read on forums, it's called going sexual. It just means that conditions that they currently have are not either favorable or they're trying to reproduce. And so therefore they form spores, and usually that involves part of the body of the algae dying away, kind of like withering away. Kind of like when your plants have nutrient deficiencies, right? It looks like that until it goes transparent, it disappears, and that nutrient is released in the water column in the form of spores that would then settle somewhere else along the reef or coast and grow in from there. So, as far as like dosing goes, when you do need to, most times people have issues with not enough nutrients. How many of you kind of chase after your nutrients because they kind of go crazy from time to time? It's okay, we all do it. So, right? So a lot of times we're worried about having too many nitrates in the water. A lot of times with macroalgae tanks, you have to dose nitrates and you have to dose phosphates. So imagine that, that's pretty wild, right? You're doing the opposite essentially because you're running out of those nutrients so fast as the macroalgae utilize them and to grow. And anytime you remove those macroalgae from the system after they've grown, you're also removing those nutrients as well too. So dosing is pretty important when it comes to that, or at least just having supplemental. The more lighting you have, the more stimulation for them to grow, the more nutrients they're going to need. So if you do want to keep the tank to a little bit more manageable aspect, not setting your light at the most high intensity and playing around with the lighting level to find a good level where you're not growing them too fast, where you need to add a bunch of nutrients, you're finding a good middle ground. Think of it as like how we classify plants as like, low energy, high energy plants, or low light, medium light or high light plants, right? Certain monkeys like higher light, but they also can still adapt to sort of lower light environments. But in a nutshell, phosphate, these are just general requirements. Obviously, it's going to be different for everyone's tank, but just as a range of what you're going to be looking at and want to have as a level. Nitrogen, 7 to 10 ppm. That provides a little bit of buffer where if you go a week or something, you're fine, but also, they're not going to starve kind of deal. Go from there. Does anyone have any questions on this slide? No? Cool. So here's a couple of the different products that I've used personally that I've had fun with. So some of these you may recognize, right? Some of these are all-in-one fertilizers for freshwater tanks. Again, they're using similar nutrients, so that's one less thing you have to check off your box on worrying about as far as how to take care of these algae and such. As far as salt goes, right, it's the same concept as if you're remineralizing water for your freshwater tank or for your, how do you keep Caradinia species? Okay, so are you using some sort of buffer or something like that?
Yeah,
Exactly. Same concept as salt. It's just you're adding salt, right? And you're keeping the salinity level. Going with salinity is as long as you keep the water level consistent, you're not really going to change its salinity when you have evaporation. Only the water evaporates, H2O, the salt is left behind. So as long as you measure the salinity, your tank is at the correct salinity, you keep it topped off, the volume of the water the same, your salinity will not fluctuate. So just make sure you top off the water and you're good to go. And top off with pure water, not salt water. If you add salt water in on top of evaporated water, you're increasing the salinity because you're adding more salt to that system or that volume, right? That's it. As far as that goes, there's a couple different easy ways to measure salt. If those of you who have salt water tank,
5 and 33
for
pizza.
35, 33, your barbecue pizza is ready to go. So You can use a refractometer, you can use a hydrometer. Refractometer is gonna be way more accurate. How many of you like dressing up and pretending you're like you're a pirate, right? That's what you're gonna do with the refractometer. So if anything, it's gonna add something fun to your life that you never knew existed, right? So well, essentially you put a little drop of salt water on that lens, you close the lens cap, and you hold it up to a light, and it will show you on that where roughly your salinity is on a gradient of measurements and whatnot. And then you just say R, and then you get it back and it's done, right? So a lot of fun. And we're gonna do another. Yeah, it does look cool. It looks like you're doing some pretty crazy science stuff, and really, it's just regular function. Let's talk about equipment a little bit, right? So we're thinking saltwater tanks, right? We're thinking protein skimmers and calcium reactors and all of these crazy complicated pieces of equipment that have probably kept us away from doing like a reef tank in the past, right? No, nothing too crazy. So we've got a similar tank here today. What we're going to use a pump to push water from this back chamber into the main display tank. So the same thing as if you have a sump at home. Does anyone use sump systems at home? It's like big tanks, right? It's a very nice way to be able to consistently move water and filter your tank while having a reservoir and put your heater down, get it out of there. Same concept. The filter is just in the back here. It's just divided by this wall. So we have an Awaza OptiMax pump that'll go in the bottom here. So I'm going to do my shameless plug right here. I've worked for Awaza for over 5 years now. I've used their products and sold their products at the stores and at the maintenance companies that I work for. So while I'm biased, I have stood by their product for quite some time. They are a German engineering company based out of Horstel, Germany. Here in the U.S., our office is out of Aurora, Ohio. And we are pretty much about quality products. German engineering combined with us manufacturing our own goods of our core lines and such, give us the control to make sure that our products are quality, will stand up, and at the same time, we still offer some nice warranty on these products. So should you have a problem, you give customer service a call, they're going to help handle that for you and take care of you guys and whatnot. So the OptiMax pump is a great little pump, does its job, it's manually controllable. So for whoever takes this home today, we're going to put it on the lowest setting. As the macroalgae grow in, it's going to confine some of the flow in the tank and kind of keep things from flowing as much. You can adjust that to open it up to full throttle once it's grown in. But that way, we're not blowing around the macroalgae and blowing them off the rocks and everything this afternoon or when you go home and set this up, right? In addition to that, we also have a heater in here too. So this is our blinded heaters, 25 watt. It is like a double quartz glass. So it's pretty durable. When you look through the bottom here, you'll notice it's significantly warped in the sense that it's just thick glass, and rounded glass warps how you see inside of it. And it is recalibratable too. So should you be getting a weird reading to what you're taking the temperature with, you can always recalibrate that should you need to. And that's what we got for the filtration of that site. As for the biomedia, we got some ceramic biomedia here from Aqualife. Aqualife, they provide our lighting for the day, our tank, our filter bags, our filter media, and a variety of other things for some of the demos this weekend that we've done. So thanks to Aqualife and to Awaza for helping provide the materials for this, and thanks to Luke for helping organize a lot of this as well too, as well as the gentleman who had helped supply some of the macroalgae for this weekend. And thank you to the club because they actually helped provide and purchase some of the macroalgae for this demo as well too. So big shout out to them. We'll give them a round of applause towards the end here. But all we're going to do for the filtration aspect is we're going to take a bag of biomedia. So it's just like a porous media like we would use in our canisters or, in a sump or, essentially providing surface area for bacteria and things of that nature. We'll fill it up fully. I'll put it in afterwards, whatnot. But we fill this up. And in the back of this chamber here, there's a couple of different chambers. You're just going to use one for biomedia. You'll use one for whatever other media you want. You can do mechanical filtration with sponge media or polyfiber filter pad. Really, you're still concerned about the same biological functions as your freshwater tank as you would anything else. Lighting, like we talked about, that 5500K spectrum, which is the typical white light that you guys would use for a planted tank, is going to be ideal for macroalgae. They photosynthesize very similar, and that's the color from that works best for them. You can go above, you can go below. The light that we have here is the Aqualife arm light, the nano RGB aquascaping light. This is controllable, so when whoever brings this home, you can get the app up and you can change the color spectrum on here. You can change the intensity, etc. In addition to that, you can roll up these little gaskets on the side here. And heighten it or lower it to get different intensities as well too. You'll also be able to put timers on it, things of that nature, all from the comfort of your phone. So, you know, when the family comes over, you can light it up if the tank's cycle is off, etc. So, and it's kind of nice. It gets to move. So when you're working on the tank in a minute here, you can just move it out of the way and do your water change or do your maintenance and such. Go from there. So, some other options that are out there on the market that we've used in the past. Different products. You know, but again, a lot of plant lights. How many of you use fancy plant lights for your tanks? So I'm sure Twin Stars, something that you notice. A lot of people use Twin Stars for macroalgae tanks, things of that nature. A lot of times it comes down to what color rendition you like as well too. As long as it's kind of within that range or has that spectrum, you're good to go. Again, filtration, you can use pretty much anything. You know, you're trying to hold biomedia, you're trying to pass water through it. It's the same concept with all the different filters. So you can use hang on the backs. So if you do want to try some macroalgae later tonight for anything that's left over, you have a 10-gallon tank at home, you have a hang on the back filter at home, you're golden. You can start your own little macroalgae tank. You can get a cool little shrimp from your guys' local saltwater stores, things of that nature, and start trying your hand at a little bit of a saltwater tank, right? Substrate, we actually, look at that. I think we have something similar, the exact actual product that's on the slide. That matches nicely. That never really happens. But we're going to be using a reef grade sand, which is calcareous in nature, so that's going to help buffer the water, right? How many of you keep aphid cichlids? How many of you use like a cichlid sand or something like that, right? Yeah. So similar concept. It buffers the water, it keeps things buffered, so that way you have some of those minerals in the water and such. The rock will also do the same thing. But on the topic of that, it's pretty neat because you're not dealing with corals that need a little bit more specific parameters with you know, those minerals and such. Macroalgae, unless it's a calcareous version, which there are some, most of them don't actually have calcium in their structure of their body or aren't using a lot of it, right? So when you pass this around, I've got some Gracilaria hay and whatnot. I'll start passing this around now. But go ahead and just, you know, do the feel. It almost feels like a Nubius Mana Petite, you know, it's kind of like rigid, but it's also not like completely hard. It's like kind of sort of still. It's like a,
That's really cute.
yeah. And that's a really cool macro that we'll go over in a minute. But we're gonna use some different resand. We're gonna use a larger bag with some crushed coral to it to add some different texture when you're aquascaping using a variety. I mean, you go in, how many of you have been to the Keys before? Or anywhere on a reef for that matter? Okay, when you look at the sand, it's not just one grain size, correct? When you go to your local creek, or you go to the lake, right? It's not just one single piece of sand or rock type, right? It's a variety of different types and such. And that's kind of what we're going to try and mimic here. It kind of creates a little bit more natural look, less manufactured. The hardscape itself, we're going to use some reef rock or base rock that was cultured, and then added, you know, kept in a tank so it basically became live by the beneficial bacteria colonizing on it. It's also going to act with biological filtration as well too. But you can use inert rocks like lava rock, things like that. You just still want to make sure that you have some sort of buffering component as well too, where you maintain a little bit of a KH, you know, balance in that tank as well. So with planting, we'll go over that by actually showing you guys in person, but there's a couple different modes. You can use rubber bands, you can use glue. Sometimes macros don't like to be glued down, so they'll ride away where you glue them. But if it stays long enough to the point where it can attach, then you're golden, right? And that's sometimes the same case with a Nubius. How many of you have glued a Nubius to a rock? And you find that rhizome rots away, and you have half of your Nubius that is attached from the one that wraps around and grabs the rock, right? And the other bit of it is now pestily floating around your tank, and your fish are trying to eat it. And, you know, they probably shouldn't, so they choke. But yeah, that can happen with macroalgae too. But that's why using like a rubber band or what we'll do today is we're just gonna kind of ledge them in the rocks, right? Which goes with having the pump that's adjustable in terms of flow, so we're not pushing it all over the place until it can attach in a couple of weeks, and then it will start growing from there, and you don't have to worry about it. So similar concepts. Here's a rubber band example, and then here's an example of one of the tanks I did on one of the earlier slides where I have points of where I'm going to put some of these macroalgae. And just keeping in mind the growth forms of what they're going to be like is pretty important too, right? It's like, you know, the Aponogeton, any of those Aponogetons, right? You know how big they're going to get. You wouldn't put a Madagascar release plant in a 10-gallon thinking that that's going to be where it's going to be for the rest of life. It'll outgrow that 10-gallon and maybe I don't know, yeah, exactly. Not even 3 leaves, like 1 leaf alone could wrap around that thing multiple times, right? So same concept, we've got macros, and the nice thing with ultra macros is not a lot of them like grow large in terms of each individual strand or their body shape, it's just more the volume of them. So the cool thing with macrology is that you can prune it, you can trim it, you can really shape it. We have any gardeners in here, like, again, it's a little bit dry in this area of the US, right? So, but if any of you ever had bushes that you can trim and shape and whatnot, think of that is kind of how you're going to be managing some of these macroalgae and stuff. So, yeah. There's not much in there you can with, so we'll figure it out. One of the biggest issues I think with macroalgae tanks is availability, right? So we've got a wide variety of them here tonight, but how do you find them normally? Well, most macroalgae in the wild is going to be coming from your tropical regions, your shallow reef regions, things of that nature. They do come from a variety of different zones within that. So you'll find, like I said, some of the greener macroalgae will be closer up in the shallower areas where they're getting a lot more light. And there's some of the red varieties that are found deeper down in the reef and whatnot, where they're not getting as much light. And hence that's why their coloration is a different color, because that's the colors they're going to grab some of the light that does penetrate that far down. But any of you been diving before? Okay, so when you go down past 10 feet, right, it looks physically to your eyes different because there's not all the spectrum of light making it down that far, because it physically cannot penetrate down that far, right? Yeah.
Good question. Do cold water macroalgae do well in warm temperatures and vice versa, or are they like fish that the right kind of the right?
It's very similar to fish in some cases, right? So if you were to go along the coast and pick some out, et cetera, which check your local laws and wildlife, right? And we're gonna get to that because I've talked about some macros that you guys are not legally allowed to have here yet, but in the rest of the US you can pretty much have. But yes, your your temperate climate species, if they're found in 40, 50 degree water year round, they may not condition well, or they may last for a while, but it's the same thing with, Phil here, who does a lot of like, native fish, right? You keep a native fish or like a shiner in 75, 80 degree water year round, you're going to burn that fish out a lot faster than if you keep it at a cooler temperature.
Plus, it doesn't color up.
Yeah, and it doesn't color up too, so you're not going to get the full effect of it. So that's why most of the ones in the hobby come from like the Philippines, from the Florida Keys, where they are found in those shallow water environments that can heat up and are a little bit more variable and forgiving as well too. So on that topic, I hear someone laughing. Who is that? Yeah, why are you laughing?
Well, I wondered when you were gonna mention Calurpa not being legal in California.
Well, here's the exact law. So, the people of the state of California do enact as follows. Section 1, Section 2300 of the Fish and Game Code is amended to read: A, no person shall sell, possess, import, transport, transfer, release alive in the state, or give away without consideration the saltwater algae of the genus Calurpa. So we're going to skip through half my presentation. No, I'm just kidding. We only have species that are legal here. I want you guys to be mindful of this because when you're looking online at macroalgae tanks, a fair number of those ones that I had in the slides, some of them were Calurpas. A lot of your green algae are the Calurpas that are commonly found in this. Yes.
I just thought I'd mention too, since you so kindly brought this up, that Calurpa was actually found in bays in Southern California, and it was growing in the mud flats, and they were trying to control it. And it turns out that I believe they controlled it essentially with chlorine and covered it with a big tarp and then treated it with chlorine. But it was a real challenge, and we have seahorses and other things in Southern California, surprisingly enough. So there was it seems like it's kind of crazy, but there was actually a pretty good reason for moving forward and banning Calurpa.
Correct. And also you got to keep in mind too, a lot of those agencies have very limited resources in terms of physical staff as well as monetary limits as well too. Case in point, that case I believe was in Coronado Caves, I believe. And that was and I'm just paraphrasing because I was making sure my facts were right, but the 3,471 square meters found of Calurpa prolifera. That's a pretty big patch. Imagine trying to maintain something that can reproduce by fragmentation, by simply breaking apart in the open ocean, right? I mean, obviously there's currents, there's things like that that keep things kind of restricted and geographically, in different areas. But even still, there are still fish that get washed up from events and currents, things like that, that end up in different oceans where they don't normally naturally occur. That's pretty crazy to think about. And that's why they put a blanket statement on it. Because if one common species that's found in the aquarium trade that comes from the South Florida Keys can get over here and introduced somehow, I couldn't find a reason as to if they knew how it got introduced, but obviously aquarists are always on that dartboard of possibilities and whatnot, right? Because we've been guilty of that before. Don't give anyone any more reasons to not like the aquarium hobby, right? So don't keep Chlorpas. It's unfortunate that they're banned, and they're a really cool group of macroalgae, but do yourself a favor and don't get fined and don't be, I guess, part of that issue, right? So be responsible. And if anyone needs the link, I can send it to you later. And if you want to read more about that incident, it's on their website. So if you go to Fish Game Wildlife California, you'll find it on there as well too. So take a look at that. Always be responsible. So that going, we're just going to skip through these slides a little bit. This is the one that is invasive, right? So there are a lot of really cool different varieties, textures. You can see how you could use these in the background, but there's other varieties, and I'm going to demonstrate today why you don't need chlorpas, okay? Aside from chlorpa, though, we do have some non-green algae, like this Victoria species, which is a brown algae. It looks really cool. It almost looks like, how many of you kept some Ross Bretagne? Yeah, in very similar form, kind of similar. It's kind of like a moss.
You should see that when it's in the tank, that thing has like a sheen to it. Yeah, that's purple and blue. It's a beautiful algae.
Yeah. There's another one in the talk here too that's this gorgeous purpley red. You can kind of play with it in light or when it's swaying in your tank and whatnot. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it looks like a gemstone in your the purple phosphia.
And I collected this as deep as 300 feet.
Wow.
Not a shallow water plant.
Which means low light environments it can do fineless. You don't need super crazy intense lighting, which means you don't need to chase crazy dosing regimens or anything like that. That is one, the Victoria species. This guy here is definitely one you keep a watch out for because it will slowly creep over the rest of your rock, right?
And there are lots of different species.
Yeah, this is just that's why I put species on here is because there's tons of different ones, and a lot of them aren't really even identified properly yet, or you can't really find specific photos. The one thing with macroalgae too is depending upon the lighting, depending upon your nutrients in your water, one species can take on a lot of different growth forms, a lot of different colors as well too, which makes it even that much more interesting to keep macros in the first place. Because you could have two tanks set up identically, but have one with slightly less light, one with slightly more light, and you'll get two completely different looking tanks. Completely different looking. And it could be the same exact species, you bought it from the same exact source. Yeah, makes it really interesting. Yeah.
Are there any species of the macroalgae for brackish water?
So I've got my question numerous times. I have never played with them in brackish water. I would assume that there are. I can't necessarily give you like a species off the top of my head. One person I would talk to would be like Gary Lane about that, since he's done a lot with some like the brackish water, pseudobugle rainbows and such. And that's one thing that Tim and I have talked about is pseudobugle, Cyanocordalis, I believe, Cyanodorsalis. It can tolerate brackish water or lives in brackish and sometimes even full marine too.
Tell you in the wild, there are lots.
Yes. But what species are available in the hobby or which ones are transferable from what I'm showing today, I couldn't tell you because it's just one of those things that hasn't really been played with in the hobby as I'm sure someone has. Some public aquarium or
Something to experiment with.
Yeah, it's even more fun. One of my favorite ones is this one. This is a Codium species. There's a couple different varieties and likely a lot of different species as well too. This one you'll find from the Gulf and Florida. Again, just showing you different colors and different species could be highly variable between different forms. But this is the one that I have at home. It takes on this like kind of green, wiggly, squiggly algae, and it does feel like jelly. So it's a really cool one. So it's a green algae, and it grows pretty well. It is a seasonal one, so you may notice some dieback. Sometimes it will grow back, things of that nature. But to keep things consistent, that's the big thing with anything, right? Is consistency. So that's a great one to try. Blue hypnea is probably one of the more sought after ones, and we do have a little bit of that right here. This gets that gorgeous translucent blue color to it, and I mean, it's a showstopper. You saw the photo earlier from the top of Dennis's tank. It does look like that in real life. Here in the container, it looks a little reddish, purpley kind of deal. When it gets established, it starts growing in. You have the nice lighting, etc. Keep it towards the top so it gets the intense lighting. You're going to notice some of those great colors coming out of it as well too. What I have pointed out here is what I passed around. That's Gracilaria hayi. Gracilaria is a huge genus of macroalgae. I believe there's several species that you find in environments off the coast as well too. They come from a variety of different areas. Gracilaria hayi in particular is probably my favorite macroalgae, simply because it forms these really nice bushy clumps and it's super hardy and forgiving as well too.
I really like this. This is one of the few species that we can actually find in stores here.
Yes, that's a great point to bring up, Luke. It's this is one that stores have access to from wholesalers because it does so well. They just throw it in a tank, and typically the invert rack at most of these saltwater shops, you'll find it there. And if you're anywhere else outside of California, you'll see chlorals everywhere else too. Yes.
You said these are the slower growing ones, right? How long would you say for like a clump like that to double? Like what's in the cup?
Yeah, again, it depends upon like the nutrients in the tank. But once it becomes established, that's the thing with a lot of these macros is it takes a week or two for it to just get established. Just the same thing as like anubias, right? It doesn't grow right away. You gotta let it attach, get set, and then it just kind of slowly meanders over time. I would say you're looking like in a month, it will probably double. Macroalgae grow quick enough depending on the lighting and your dosing schedule to the point where on a weekly basis you may have to trim. So that's the cool point is that if you accidentally clip too much, just let it grow up. If any of you keeping CO2 with your planted tanks, and so you know how quickly your rotalis can grow. You give them what they want, what they desire, pour in some milk and they just take off, right? It's got everything a growing boy needs, right? So just a great option. And for anyone that's looking to try it, this is a great one to start with. So mark it down if it's of interest. There's a ton of different types of Gracilaria though. This is another one. It's called red ago. It's a lot skinnier, branching, finer branching. Like I said, there's a ton of different species of Gracilaria. You're going to see a bunch of them on some of the online sources that we have. There's also some other ones like red grape algae, Botricularia. I butchered a lot of these names, pardon me, but this one's pretty neat. Again, a red macroalgae, kind of a lower light one. There's another photo of it as well too. Dragon's breath. This one is fluorescent on the tips, so if you do have some of your reef tank lighting, you'll notice it's going to grow right on and just swell the tank. So how many of you like the disco? No? Anyone here a raver? No, I'm just kidding. If you really want to get down and funky one night in the fish room, you can put on your black lights and party out with your disco ball as well too. There you go. Dragon's breath is for you. Green top algae is pretty cool. This is another green algae, but it's a calcareous algae. So on these segments here, they use calcium to form that structure. It's almost like a little skeleton almost. And then at the very end, they have these little pop pops on the edge. So it creates a really weird looking macroalgae in contrast to some of the others. They're very alien-like in a way, which is kind of cool. We have Halamidia here today. This is another green algae. This is a rooted variety, so that'll go in the back of the tank as well too. So that's kind of like a background plant you guys could use in replacement of any sort of caloriferous species.
Calamity needs a lot of calcium to grow.
Yep. So just keep on top of the water changes, things like that. You'll notice if it starts turning like white that you need to up the calcium aspect of it. But being as we're going to be using some reef sand and reef rock, you're going to have some of that getting dissolved into the water. And if it's a small enough tank, doing water changes is not going to be that hard. So that'll keep up with it as well too. Shaping brush. Many of you have been to Florida. This is probably one that you've seen all over the reef flats, or not reef flats, but just the macroalgae flats where they just grow abundantly and whatnot. Another rooted one. I tend to find these ones are a little bit more difficult to take care of in the long term. That's just my experience. So I think they just need bright lighting and a decent amount of flow. Same thing goes with mermaids fans. They sway in the water. If you go to Florida, you'll see them all over the place. But they get pretty big and they like to be in the open water current kind of deal. There's a little shark nose go be on there as well too. Fascia, this is the one that I was talking about. It's not the best photo of it, but this is like a translucent purple. It literally looks like, you know, your high school folder that had the holographic, purple translucent, or if any of you have done vinyl wraps in your cars, think of that, you know? There you go. So that's a cool one. And so it's not just about the macroalgae themselves, right? If you're doing a saltwater tank, you're doing a macroalgae tank, as long as you're not choosing an herbivorous fish like a foxface or any of your tanks that naturally eat a lot of these algae and such, you can do some really cool stuff. How many of you like shrimp? Oh my God, you're gonna be in heaven, right? What was that? Yeah. I no joke. One of the stores I worked at, there's a gentleman that would always purchase, you know, one of the blue spiny reef lobsters that used to be pretty common in the aquarium trade. And every year he would come back at the same time. I go, what's going on here? He goes, well, every year, once it grows large enough, I take it out and I throw it on the barbie. You know, I don't know if he's just pulling my leg, but I'm like, why would you buy one a year then if it's not doing it? Yes.
If you have like the shrimp on the left there, right, and you got a planted saltwater aquarium, what are you, if it's not eating the algae and all that, what are you feeding that?
Shrimp pellets, mice and shrimp, you know, not saying cannibalism is cool, but you know, in the fish world, we all know that's kind of the norm. You're feeding on really just a variety of anything. You can flake, you can do whatever. As long there's some fish species that have pickier diets, like the saltwater fish. I think mysis shrimp is a pretty big staple for most people. Really any of the frozen foods, things of that nature, you know.
You can stick your hand in there and let it take your dead skin off.
Yeah.
So just put your foot in every week, you know, and then you should go.
There's no shrimp that can handle that.
There you go. Extra nutrients for the macroalgae then, right?
Maybe a
We all know these ones, right? Urethane fishes, right? You can transfer over some mollies to your saltwater tank as well too. So there's an option for you if you want to keep things as close to freshwater as possible and not, you know, go as adventurous as the other options. There you go. Have your mollies there. If you like shrimp, but you like shrimps that can punch and stab that are a little bit more aggressive, I highly recommend if you want a wet pet. I heard some of you like to keep pufferfish, right? Not quite a pufferfish. I would argue a little bit more intelligent and way more aggressive. Mantis shrimps from monopods. I can't believe I was probably less than a couple miles away from the gentleman that did a lot of studies on these, but Dr. Roy Codwell from Berkeley University has a list online, and fantastic. That was my holy grail of information growing up in high school when I totally wasn't going to parties. Instead, I was just nerding out online, emailing in forums and stuff like that, right? He has a list online that goes through a variety of species commonly found in the aquarium trade, right? You click on them. A lot of the ones in the Caribbean are great. There's a lot of small species. Most of us have probably seen the peacock mantis, right? Big brute, green body, but multiple colors all over the antennal scales and all that fun stuff, right? There's so many other species. This one is Pseudosquillia ciliata. It comes from the Caribbean, and this is actually a spearing species. So on the raptorial appendage there's no club. That's like a 2-inch spear with barbs on it, and it actively hunts. This is the best species of spears to keep because they stay small, around 3 to 4 inches. This guy also shed its exoskeleton and turned electric orange.
Oh.
So I had two choices between two specimens at the local fish store I bought this one at. It was this one with the racing stripe for $19.99 and a bright orange specimen for $79.99. It all has to do with their environment. They can kind of change their coloration each different shed depending upon that and whatnot. And sure enough, after a month, it was the bright orange coloration and whatnot. So kind of cool. The variability with them is really neat. You want an animal that's going to look you back and keep your life with you late at night? This is it. I kid you not. They are intelligent animals. They have the most confident size in the animal kingdom. They have 16 color recepting cones versus our measly 3, right? So we may think we're top dogs, but the instant that these ones get the brain of our size, it's over for us. You think octopuses are smart? Well, you know.
So will they spear other fish in the tank?
Yeah, so this is definitely not one that would be fish friendly, and even the species that have the clubs, which is the majority of what we see in the industry, they can still take down fish. They usually don't. So this is more of a species only tank. But you can keep them with macroalgae, you can keep them with corals, so you still have a lot of options as far as what you can keep them with. Some of the Spaniards even people can keep fish with, but just know that's a risk that you're possibly gonna lose.
Yeah.
It's like with a aqua puffer, right?
Well, as
Something
you described it, it sounded to me like, oh, that could be very dangerous.
they call them thumb splitters when fishermen pull them up because some of the larger specimens. You guys have a species, I believe, more Southern California, but it's a huge. It gets like a foot long, and it's beautiful. But that thing, having the clubs on it, I've had some different species of banjo shrimp, including a peacock. And the peacock that I have is a big female, is about 8 to 9 inches, is about yay big. They say they can crack glass. I think only the large specimens are capable of that. And typically it's from them digging underneath rocks and toppling things over. So when you do keep a lot of tunneling species, or if you decide to do like a pistol shrimp, which is a burrowing shrimp that has a little finger snapper, make sure that you glue your rocks down solid, right? So that way they can't dig under and undermine and crack glass. Put some egg crate on the bottom and such as well too. So
Yeah, they one go through an ice chest.
oh,
I mean,
Yes.
it took them 2 days.
They're smart though. They'll repetitively hit. I mean, they do that to open up clams, snails, etc. A lot of other cool fish or shrimp that do not break your thumb. This Peterson shrimp. These ones are found symbiotically with different types of anemones in the Caribbean, but they look great in a macroalgae tank too. How many of you like fish because of the behavior? You like mouth brooding fish, things of that nature? Do you want to talk symbiotic relationships and cool behaviors? Macroalgae tanks are great for that because a lot of the small little fish, shrimps, and macro, vertebrates and stuff have a lot of really cool relationships. So it's just adds an extra level of intricacy and interest. Sexy shrimp. How many of you like, playing Lil Wayne in your car, blasting down the highway and whatnot? It's nice booty moving music. Well, sexy shrimp do because they literally move their abdomen in a circle, and if you look up some videos online, it's comical. But they're a cute little shrimp. They only stay about maybe like an inch full grown, less than that, 3/4 of an inch. Beautiful red coloration with that bright highlighter blue around the white spots. In addition to macroalgae, you can keep other sessile invertebrates. These are not sessile; they can move around. They have a foot, but it kind of creates a really cool, unique look that's different from everyone else's 20 million frag plugs in a reef tank, and then it grows in, and you lose half of them because you got lose space. So, anemones, things of that nature. Here's another macroalgae tank set up for one of the displays. Here's another one by Courtney. Here it is grown in a little bit later. So this was only like a month apart, right? So pretty significant growth, and then it just keeps on growing from there. Again, corals as well as macroalgae by Tyler. So resources from where to buy equipment, support your local store, and also support your local clubs too, right? So that's mainly where I would purchase most of these materials from. As to where to buy macroalgae, obviously your local fish stores, but as Luke mentioned, you're probably only going to find maybe 1, 2 species, and that's if they carry them. A lot of times it's happenstance that maybe they had it on some rock that came from someone and it grew from there. Not many people, unfortunately, stock these on a regular basis. However, there are a lot of online sources as well as local sources with other hobbyists that may be keeping these if they're not, similar to myself or other macroalgae nuts that are sprinkled around the country. And a lot of times, just like plants, most people are happy to share and give you something to try and try it out, see how you like it and such. But here's some online sellers, and so we're gonna do the demo, and I just want to say special thanks to all of you here, Owaza and Offlife, for supporting this by providing materials again, and then all the following people that are on Instagram. So should you want to see any more of their macroalgae tanks, feel free to write their name down and find them on there. But they all let me use these photos for this explanation as well too. But we're going to get going with the macroalgae demo, the actual demo portion right now. It is a small tank, so we'll keep it brief and whatnot, plant it up. If you guys have any questions, we're just going to kind of switch to more open forum. I've already kind of explained what we're doing and such. If anyone has any questions of connecting things between the presentation and the demo, please just feel free to speak up. We're just going to go through the motions here.
Are you local here, or did you drive up? Are you from Sacramento?
Oh, that's a long drive from Chicago. No, yeah, I'm from the northwest suburbs of Chicago, so that's where I live. Yeah.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me. That's what I do. Right, anyways. Yeah, some of your closest species, by the way. So a little love for the natives, right? This is up in Seattle though, so not quite to California, but I'm sure their range comes down a little bit. So it's a really neat species. This one was really cool. I forgot what the name of this one was called. That was fantastic. Like purpley hue.
That's really common here too.
Yeah, is it? Very cool. That's awesome. So, you know, if you guys want inspiration for doing mackerel shape, go look at your local, go for a walk. Go touch some algae, right? That's excellent stuff. Grass is the only thing you can touch, I guess. So let's do that. And do you want to switch over the screen?
Yeah.
And we'll adjust. I'm gonna pull the table back a little bit so I can get in front. If anyone has any questions on aquascaping specifics, feel free to ask. With saltwater tanks specifically, because traditionally it's more of I'm gonna place a coral, it's gonna grow how it grows. It hasn't really traditionally been like a aquascaping style of aquarium, right? But with macroalgae, that changes a little bit. So we're still gonna keep into account the depth, the tank, things of that nature. Granted, we're dealing with a smaller thing today, so we're gonna set up more as like a display. So when these macroalgae grow in where we place them, it's just gonna look beautiful and lush. That's kind of what we're gonna do today. But if you're doing a bigger tank, 20 gallon, things like that, yeah, you can use depth. You can build up the back wall with extra substrate, rocks underneath the sand, so that way you don't have to use as much sand. You can use all the same tips and tricks of aquascaping a freshwater tank as you could a saltwater tank.
For a tank like this, you talked about water changes, right? Let's just say there's no animals in there, it's just plants.
Yeah.
Are you doing water changes or just topping it?
I right now have one tank going with macro, or two small tanks going with macroalgae, and it's just macroalgae right now. I don't have any livestock in there. I've not done a water change in there for over like 3 months because it's just using the nutrients that I'm dosing. If I do water changes because one of those minerals that's in my dosing regimen is accumulating too much, but the other ones are being used up. So that's like one of the downsides of using like an all-in-one fertilizer, right? Because it's not using everything, something's accumulating, right? It's, because I don't eat too much tuna. No one likes to have too much mercury. So while we love to dose our tuna to our bodies, it's not always the best thing, right? So generally you can get away with doing not too much if you're not doing your lab. So it's also worth mentioning that a lot of like the shrimps and everything do not contribute a whole lot in terms of bioload. So you can still have really brightly colored little gobies and stuff and the shrimp. If you have a really busy, active, fun to watch, my cats love my tanks when I had the shrimp in them and everything like that. And it's just cool tank, something different. What I have here is an accelerator spray. I also have a super glue, actually a gel super glue. So similar to what you use for a freshwater tank for getting nudis on. You put this on, and this also works with rocks, and then use the accelerator spray, which is an aerosol. So don't breathe this in too closely. And this helps fix that instantly, so you don't have to wait 30 seconds for it to cure and hold the bottom. So little 7.5 gallon tank. This is gonna boost for long, but we're going to start by doing a layer of sand. Here, like I said, on the right is kind of cool. You just swing that out, you're good to go to do maintenance. One thing that I will point out with this tank is you've got two different depths, so I'm not going to go super crazy on the substrate. And because we're going to primarily use rock in here, we don't need to go super crazy with that. I still am going to slope it up a little bit. And this is where generally I have a paintbrush with me or something like that, but just gonna use these tweezers for a second here. Get my daily dose of Chelsea.
You don't need to rinse the sand.
Generally I would, but do it with a probably not tap water. You don't want any metals or anything accumulating in there. Obviously shrimp are very sensitive to those. Like DI water or anything like that if you can. Or just do a water change afterwards. We're not going to disturb it too much when we're filling it up and whatnot, but so it won't release a lot of that. But for whoever's bringing this home, you can just siphon out with the next couple of water changes and whatnot to get all that dust out. Or whatever doesn't. So when you go home, we're going to drain it back out and then fill it up and take a lot of it out as well too. So there's that. What I have here for rock it's just a bunch of like the spacecraft here. So yes, it's a little wet, but if you want to pass this around, just get an idea for it. I mean, it's just old ancient corals, and they have man-made stuff now. So it's like mixtures of different types of rock and concrete, I believe, or not really concrete, but there's mixes of different things, whatnot. You know, there's some big pieces and such here. Because the tank is angled and it's kind of more of a rectangular from the back and it's tall, we're gonna focus on height today. Remember when I was talking about how a lot of mackerel just like be pressed into place, they don't like to be glued? We're probably gonna have to do a lot of gluing because look at the rock here. There's a lot of different nooks and crannies in there. That's gonna fill in really nicely with a lot of the different species that we have here as well too. This also goes that if you guys want to do something like barnacle bunnies, they find a crevice and then they hang out there and they have these big eyes that just stick out there and we put food in there, they dart out, grab it, dart back in. This would make perfect, you know, little homes for a bunch of them as well too. There's tiny little bunnies that they, you know, do well in the side tank. I am going to keep in mind the sides of the glass and whatnot. Never fun when you put your foot too close to the glass and either you notice a big scratch or you just have that one little patch of algae that you really can never fully get, right? Until you sacrifice your, you know, Amex business card and get in there with that, you know. One thing I'm noticing is there's a lot of these rounded edges on here. I want to have some interest coming out towards the end. And I want to kind of have a gradient to some of these algae. So it's going to be a little bit more of like a showy tank in that sense. So I'm going to play around with different pieces. And generally when I'm looking at different pieces, I'm looking for visual interest of depth, you know, concave versus convex features, you know, things of visual interest and making sure that like a lot of the rock is cohesive with color. The nice thing about the reef rock, it's all pretty synonymous aside from the structure and whatnot. It's kind of like how many of you have messed with dragonstone? It's pretty much all the same. It's maybe slightly different in terms of coloration from stone to stone. So you buy a box of it, right? A quarter of it looks like completely different. Right? Texture-wise, it looks the same, but coloration-wise, it's completely different, right? So that's something to keep in mind too. You can use that to your advantage. You can use darker colored rocks in the back and lighter colored rocks in the front. That can help create a sense of depth too. Shadows, contrast, that all goes into play here. And then, like I was saying, with the gradient of the sand, which we'll fix with some of this stuff in the future here, you also want to have a good amount of different varieties of sizes of rocks as well, too, right? How many of you just throw like 3 big rocks in a tank and call it a day, right? Looks at that. It's okay if you do. Don't worry. That is some people's taste, you know. Sometimes that's what you want to do. But if you want a little more natural, like gradient to different sizes and shapes really helps because that's what happens in nature. Things get ground down, erosion, things of that nature. I'm gonna put this one in the back to kind of help support some of the other rock work, and that'll help pin that down.
I can move too.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just move the bag out of the way. Yeah.
When you got here today, did you already have these pieces? You kind of worked with them, or are you given pieces here like, dude, I gotta work with this?
No, well, no, it was so with the reef rock, the cool thing about it is here's what I did. Let me find. Do you want to see a hammer around here? First. Hammer and yeah.
Holy bit big.
I did this. So this piece of rock, all 3 of these pieces, or these 4 pieces, were 1 piece at one point in time. This is the beauty of some of these types of rocks. So dragonstone, right, from freshwater tanks, and I guess you could use it in a solar tank. It's clay-based, right? A lot of these rocks, if you apply a little bit of pressure and a pinpoint to focus that pressure, that's how you get your variety of sizes and whatnot. Most of all the rocks that I buy for aquascaping or find, etc., I'm breaking down into smaller pieces. Very few of them I actually keep up. And that goes for serious stone is a little harder to break. That's definitely a denser rock. Something like that is where it's good to have local fish stores that carry that kind of stuff. So you can physically go find matching pieces or pieces that work with one another. But when it comes to dragonstone, reef rock, things like that, all you do is get yourself a bucket, make sure you have your protective prescription high laser focused vision correctors on or not, just something to shield your eyes really. And you just take it down in the bucket, apply your blunt bludgeoning device, and then you just apply, some pressure and try not to hit your hand like you did 5 times earlier today.
How old is this girl on the floor?
Nah, we're okay. This is more fun. Bing, button. How many of you get this hands on with your freshwater tanks?
Lava rock does scary.
Yes, I love lava rock. In fact, one of the escapes in the beginning there that I did was all lava rock, which is super fun. And I like working with that because go to Hawaii, what kind of rock do they have? So it's actually somewhat biotypically correct, right? So it's kind of cool what you can do. And also the black lava rock creates some really nice contrast with a lot of the corals, the macroalgae and the shrimps and such. And so with this reef rock is pretty neat because now we can kind of Lego it together. Now we've got different faces, we've got different nooks, crannies, pieces that we can use to wedge together, create a nice strong scape.
The screen went off.
It's a great blue tank.
I don't know if the
I don't know.
ran out and whatnot, but that's the sign I'm taking too long.
Green must be my.
There you go.
Love it.
Spare you much sort conferences.
Really clear beer.
It's like that high grade when you drink beer too, unless you're drinking Coors. Killer, I'm just joking. So I've got my aerosol spray. I've got the glue. Move this stuff out of the way here. Yes. So it's tools out of the way. So let's take a peek at some of the algae that we have. So do have some of these Calmedias, so you can see they're kind of tall, right? Maybe about 6 inches or so. So I kind of want to leave a spot in the background for those, poke over something. So maybe we'll keep this side taller and then come down a little bit with some macros. I like the texture of these bits here, so we're gonna kind of keep that in. And small tanks are great for transporting, which is why we're doing them. But when you're doing macroalgae tanks, my ideal tank size is 10 to 20 gallons to 30 gallons. When you start getting past 30 gallons in terms of height, anything over like 24 inches, a lot of your macroalgae, you're gonna have to be building up that rock block. There's not too many macroalgae that you guys can keep in the state of California that get awfully tall. A lot of those colurbas and stuff can get somewhat tall, but they usually don't surpass like 8 to 10 inches. They're found in shallow water environments, so they only have the potential to grow so high, right? Outside of that, you go higher, it's harder to kind of fill in a tank in that sense. But again, it all clings to rocks and whatnot, so you can, you can do a variety of things.
You buy this at Lowe's and Home Depot?
Yep.
Does it tell you that state or any clearance?
It's inert.
Okay.
So once it's fixed and whatnot, it doesn't release anything else, etc. Shelf here, so. Fine splash. One trick that I like using when aquascaping is you apply some sand afterwards of what you're using. It hides that blue spot. Otherwise, you see that white. You hit it with the adhesive, and there you go. It should be. This is heavy, relatively. What? Is this heavy? It's a little bit. That's liquid. Yeah. I think that's here. I'll use these little guys. So you guys have a dollar store too. These little tiny ones you can use as well too. You don't get much, but it works, you know.
We have the $1.25 store.
It just keeps going up quarter by quarter, right? All of our Dollar Generals are.
It used to be $1 store, now it's $1.25. Do you know the littler, Josh?
The what?
The littler? Diane and forget her husband.
Where are they based out of?
Florida, they wrote a book on marine algae.
I don't know it, but I have their book in that case.
Do you have the big hardback or the little?
Just the little pamphlet one. Yeah, or the little soft cover.
An amazing book if you want to know, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources. I didn't put everything up there, but if anyone has any interest in knowing where other places you can read about things, you can actually, pick up a book or something. I've got a whole list in another Google Doc that I'm happy to share with anyone, or any of the resources that you saw on the page about where to buy macroalgae, things like that. Just have my email, we can exchange information afterwards and whatnot. I can get you that info.
Now, is the spray an adhesive also?
No, that's just purely a
Sealant?
fixing, like a fixing, keeps things kind of, from moving.
Yeah.
It keeps the glue in place, basically.
It's an accelerant to tries it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. I read accelerant.
Yeah. It's an accelerant.
Just like when I have like 200 milligrams of caffeine, you're lucky I didn't pick up one of those energy drinks. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to hear me at all speak. Now, the opposite happened. I took too long to speak. Yeah.
Slow it down.
Yeah. Hidden messages. Yeah.
You don't wanna get this stuff on the glass.
It's fine. The aeration, it doesn't really do anything to it and whatnot. That's why I like the aerosol spray, because otherwise, if I was using the liquid spray, I'd have to make sure it contacts with it. So when you're doing these weird nooks and crannies, the aerosol spray is so great, because as long as you're somewhat near it, it hits and cures it still. So this is fantastic. This will last you a long time too.
The one I have is kind of oily. It almost tastes like the accelerant I have.
Yeah, and that's one that then gets annoying if you get it on the glass, because you have to get it off, or it's a little odd. But then you can do stuff like this where you're just kind of dropping it down. And that's the thing, if you're doing a tank like this, you could just fill this up with water and then drain it down and then fill it up with your salt water if you want to. So that way you get a lot of the dust and things of that nature out.
What do you use?
You're probably gluing rocks together.
Oh,
Or even sometimes we gluing clamp on that.
Yeah. I use
Sure.
woodwork. But I have marine plant.
Yeah.
Corals.
Use the farming.
So what are you guys all keeping nowadays? Pretty mixed bag here, and any big killifish people here?
There are some.
Yeah, raise your hands. Come on. Anyone? Killies? Okay.
I am.
The really boring brown rubulus ones, or no? Just kidding. Those ones are cool too. I'm just messing.
Yeah.
Hey, those are cool. Neat. What else do you got? Any big Instagram people or cichlids? Cool. Not really. What kind of archers? What guy? Nice. I had microlepis when I was growing up in high school, and my parents didn't really keep anything that ate crickets, but I got around this because I created a cage out of PVC and then did chicken wire on the sides. And my argument was, well, crickets will stay retained within it because the fine enough mesh. I'd be doing homework at typical 2 a.m. before it's due, and crickets, and then also pencil, the little bit of my pencil flashing while I'm writing at my desk from 10, 20 feet away would signal a hailstorm of water bullets upon me. That was a really cool. And Blithii is like one of my dream fishes because it used to be not very common. Now every fish store has them, like little juveniles and whatnot. It's pretty crazy how common they become, which is cool. It's a great fish.
Yeah, they are.
More freshwater than
Mine are full grown.
and they stay small compared to all the other species too. And it's amazing. Like, I don't know, has anyone been to the Shed or any of your guys' public aquariums? Some of the other species of arches, I mean, they get deep.
Mine, they used to be in the tank next to my bed, and spit out. Wakes you up in the morning, a little splash. First time I was like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just it's not a leaky roof, don't worry, right?
Intelligence. Trying to get a
skippers.
Oh, yeah.
Eight.
When we used to have them,
I used to have a lunch skipper tank.
just to throw his water.
First one I ever tried to catch was skipped across sand flats, and I was like, seriously?
Like the large ones, they're smaller.
I was watching a video.
Oh, those are the ones that get the nice like blue dorsal fin too, right?
I was watching a video on the guy has a really cool title setup. He's got a tank that pumps water from one tank to the other, and then he's just got a hole in the side of the tank for a little filter floss through it to let it slowly shrink back out again. I'll show a clear way to do it. Yeah. Did you go to any fish stores in San Francisco yesterday?
I've been to a couple of them beforehand, but not yesterday. So doing some errands. Unfortunately, being a Friday, I have there's a work thing that popped up as it always does, right?
6th Street Aquarium.
I've seen some videos online of it.
Yeah, they had a team of Geigers for only $129.
You want
They were
to look at it?
beautiful.
You know, the
Really?
deal price wise, but then you spend
Oh, yeah.
bajillion trying to house that.
$800,000 to put it in a tank.
You know, it's fun. You spend the same amount of money trying to house that thing, go to Peru and
Right.
go fish for one if you want. My dad hooked into one, it broke all 3 of his rods and tore apart 2 of his reels.
Wow.
And they were like heavy duty, you know, like deep water, saltwater fishing rods to maintain.
Many years I managed dolphin in Miami. We used to get a big ship to they were only $129. They were about 10 inches. Beautiful, very healthy.
Yeah.
But the problem is somebody's gonna buy it at that price. You know. And that's.
Yeah.
Red tail cat. They had them for $59 and people are gonna buy them. Ton of them. You know, 3 inches and people are gonna buy it.
That's
The Mubu pupper I just bought, was $249. The tank I had to buy, $1,600. I mean, the Mubu, at least you can keep. Yeah. Nobody's gonna keep. Yeah. Well, I've got a 7,700 gallon tank in my car.
Get this little one. I gotta try and support this skill for a minute.
There you go. My place on.
Question,
Yes.
could you please turn the brand of your spray towards the camera? Just tell us what it is, so we know what you're using. Set right here.
Yeah. It's there. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, hang on.
Go to any good working place, craft, any of them, they have that.
I've seen it, I've seriously, I've never seen it on the spray.
Yeah, the accelerants, it doesn't, there are some that are oily, but just ask for the aerosols and they do real good.
You can see here, I'm really layering it up, right? Like, probably a little too much, but I'm gonna take some of the dry sand, sprinkle it on there.
Question,
Yes.
would just spraying water on that act as an accelerant?
It does help. This works so much faster that the amount of time and hand cramps you're going to save yourself is well worth the small price to pay for it. So that's what I recommend. Then you can do cool stuff like that by getting height, by literally stacking rocks like that with 2 points of contact. You're doing the water, you're gonna have to hold that for a couple minutes for it to fully cure, 30 seconds to like a minute and a half. And you're not really guaranteed, so this gives you a strong pull throughout glue versus a lot of times for water, it'll just get the outside cured, but the inside will still be gooey, and you'll slowly see your rock try to peel away, fall and whatnot, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your time must be very valuable.
I like to think so, but.
Plus you end up with the water, you end up with it all over your hand, the glue all over your hands anyway. Oh, yeah.
You typically end up with glue on your hands regardless. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that why you do this?
Yeah, it's like those people that put Elmer's glue on their fingers just to do like ASMR videos.
Yeah.
Swear I live probably online.
No one does.
They had humphead glass fish at 6th Street too.
Nice, you don't see those often. I'm glad I haven't seen many of them that have been dyed or tattooed as of late, which is really annoying to see.
Well, see this, if you buy these ones, you can DIY it.
DIY your fish.
Tattoo your stuff.
I'm gonna pass on that one, Phil. Thanks, though.
Man, you're no fun.
I've seen enough Midwest crops carrying stuff like that. It's just like, why even?
I know, it's
Just there's no need for it. The fish itself is beautiful as is. I mean, how many translucent fish do you see with being able to?
these guys are just beautiful fish. I mean, well, maybe grotesque, but beautiful in their own.
Same.
Yeah.
As long as that's included. We'll even chat. Don't worry. Alright, so one thing I'm not gonna do is do too much rock, because the problem with doing too much rock is that once you actually put your macroalgae and let it grow out, take a couple inches in terms of depth from where you're gonna put it. So a lot of times with macroalgae aquascaping, it doesn't look too aggressive with rock itself, it just looks like a bunch of reef rock, but once it grows in, it's gonna be a completely different story. So some of the macros that I have here is you've got obviously the Helvetia species. Let me grab this guy here. I'm just gonna wet down some of the sand a little bit, best as it can. It's trying its best. Luke, is anyone Luke in here? Someone in here? Would someone mind helping me fill this up?
What do you want, water?
Yeah, there's salt water down there. We're gonna try putting some salt water in there. I'm messing right now, so let me get this open for you so you don't get
I
water.
want the water in there.
Yeah, a little bit of that salt water. You can use that container if you'd like. Just pour a little in there. It's easier. But if someone doesn't mind helping me, it's a little bit of a delicate task, but that would be helpful. So I can get the sand wet. The reason why I want to put the sand wet a little bit is that way things kind of stay upright and help humidity. What we're gonna do is saran wrap this when someone digs the hole, right? And then that way it's not filled with water. We'll use some fish pads to keep the rock in place, and go from there.
It's a 5 gallon water.
So we've got a lot of different grasslarias in here.
Yes. Maybe pour it in this red bucket and then the bucket.
And I'll tell you the difference because we have two different types of grasslarias in here aside from AI. So we got AI. Let's see what we got here. I forgot the name of that one, but that one's a fun one. It's another red macro. Here's your blue hypnia. Sorry, I'm trying not to be in the way. This will be a fun one. We're definitely going to use that. Give that a go.
Yeah, don't fill that all the way up.
And a couple other species too. So some more grasslaria AI. So fun stuff.
Okay, put it down there. Stir it in.
Thank you.
Sleep that where we get to recently.
And so one of the fun things is you're left with a bunch of small little pieces, little groundly pieces. These are great detail pieces. I love fitting them in spots where it doesn't look great, or unnatural. It helped add some texture, like something sheared off of the rock, or like a boat came by and the propeller hit, you know. You know.
Sorry, just making sure you got fit.
Yeah, that's important. Well, then he gets slapped, right? I said,
It breaks the rest of hang shrimp when you get touched.
and we all. So this is where you pretend you guys have a local like produce grocery store that does a little rainstorm.
You get that warning before.
You know.
He's gonna fill the whole tank with that on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being allowed.
So whoever can properly guess how many minutes it's gonna take to fill the tank this way wins the tank, right? So you're all trapped here until that happens. That's gonna be enough right now. If we've got some paper towel, we can use some of that, but otherwise, let's just kind of clear this out a little bit. Fantastic.
I can get another one.
Here we go. Ready?
Look at that magic.
It's almost like I've done this before. I'm totally a pro. No, I'm just kidding. You always learn. So I'm gonna go from the back to the front. Yeah, we're gonna get Almeida in here first. So how many does that? How many of you want to try macroalgae tank now? Or better yet, how many of you want to win this macroalgae tank tag, right? I'm telling you, and all you with everything included, all the materials and everything, you're probably looking at around $450 right here as far as all the equipment, retail price and everything. What's another tank, right? You all say that anyways.
Do the ones that are planted in the substrate require root taps of any sort?
Brighter lighting, but that's it's kind of it. Just make sure that you're still dosing the tank and whatnot. These guys do require calcium, so they'll suck a lot of calcium from the water column and whatnot. So if anything, take a test to your local fish store every once in a while, see if they can test for that. Anyone that keeps corals would do a similar thing anyways. So those are still pretty easy.
Oh, yeah.
Manchester, I've got a 24-gallon queue I'm leaving every day.
There we go.
Would that be big enough for a mantis?
24 gallon? Yeah, majority of the species should be fine with. I wouldn't do a peacock, but any of the ones that I mentioned, that's a good one. And they, it may look small, but it does use the space. Just like a lot of the other inquisitive animals, like pufferfish and stuff, they will explore the whole tank. So you give them the space, they'll use it. And it's only going to benefit you that the more space, just like fish, the more hiding spots you provide. Seems counterintuitive, like you're not going to see them, but the more secure they feel, the more out and about it's going to be. It's going to be like, instead of, I only have 12 inches by 12 inches to explore, it's going to go and hunt along that whole property. And that ciliata species is super cool because that's how they work. Most of the spearing species build U-shaped burrows, like the zebra mantis, things like that. They build these crazy, like 2 feet long burrows, U-shaped burrows, and that's all they do is they just sit there and they're ambush predators. Ciliata actually goes out and hunts small soft body prey like shrimps, things like that. I got my trusty chicken salad container. It's just reuse and recycle, right?
We get some of the best plants here in Costco.
Yeah. Do you guys have Holy out here? Holies, is that the thing out here or no? Okay. Well, they have a spinach container that I use for like a lot of the grow outs, and a buddy of mine has turned me onto that. It's just like a big flat, thin plastic container. It's like instead of just recycling it, you could throw just a little bit of substrate in there and grow whatever rotalas, anything like that, because it is flimsy, so you keep trying to commercially open.
We have green acres. They have these.
Just similar concept. They all use the same whatever's cheapest.
So Jonathan, you have the blue screen of death again to see it now.
Well,
Maybe.
Live stream. Not that helps, but.
Well, no, I think, yeah, but we can't, that can, we all.
Yeah.
That blue.
yeah,
It's just the screen keeps timing, it's just going to sleep.
You know, we're still saying it. It still shouldn't get that far.
I could get that, but I just don't know what I'm doing. My kid goes back, I have to call my 7-year-old.
It's under power. It's under power.
What was it, Mike? She fixes it.
Yeah.
Now, how much would you pay for it?
We need to turn off the screen timeout. You know, like it goes to sleep after something. I'll just probably be in settings. If you go to settings and then go to just type in screen, it should pop up a lot of the screen settings in there. So I'm spacing these ones out back. I'll try and describe it best I can. I have each branch of Halbidia roughly 3 inches from one another to allow enough spacing for them to grow between each other and fill in the space eventually. We're gonna take some of the Graxillary AI, and this is where it just gets fun. I find where they all branch together, right, at the very base of it, and that's where they're gonna attach onto the rock. So you just take that, it's like finding the dead end of the anubias or the rhizome where there's no leaves on it or whatnot. And you just kind of collect it in there.
Those are cool.
And that's gonna grow really nice and bushy, and you can add them together to create an even bushier effect from the beginning. And it's as simple as that, guys. It's a lot of fun. Microalgae, once this grows in, this will be a sweet little tank. You could do you could do a couple different small shrimp species in here. You do
Sure.
Just for my.
Oh, yeah, one question.
Thank you.
Carrot.
At the same time.
Yeah, it's more AI, but then also we have another Graxillary species in here, so I'll put it up on the screen. So here's the AI, right? Here is the other Graxillaria. You guys see the texture difference in that? It's like the difference between Vallisneria nana and jungle val, right? Very fine leafed or visual bits that are thicker versus thinner and whatnot. And then you can use your advantage. So we'll probably do the AI up front. So when it creates that nice bushy effect, we'll use a taller Gracilaria that's skinnier in the back to help create a sense of basically forced perspective or push it forward. That front to back, the larger stuff up front helps create, as you go through the back right, you're going to see things that look smaller or thinner. So
These are all from Florida, I think?
most of them, yeah. The blue hypnea comes from, I believe, the Indo-Pacific. So we've got a variety of things. All the things that are in the going for your yearly physical container are that's a stupid joke. Those are probably the ones that are only from other continents or other oceans. You can see this one branched out quite well, right? There's your single kind of rhizome at the base there, and then you have that nice big bushy piece from there on out. The nice thing is each of these tips on here too, wherever it touches, it'll likely spread from there or combine on there, so it'll kind of really fill in and grow nicely. And whoever brings this home is starting with a good amount of macro as is, so give it a little time to fill in, but then you won't need too much time because you'll need to trim it. And get someone else locally involved with some macroalgae. You can always slide the sugar jar, the cookie jar to the side, right? There's always room on the counter on a credenza.
Get rid of a couch.
Who needs a couch? You're gonna be standing in front of this tank all the time, right? Yeah, I hear you think you got places, don't worry. Our bedrooms doesn't sound like you can't have tank. It just sounds like you did something that you can no longer have tank.
It's not the bedroom. It's 3 to 4, 7 for turns. I feel like I have hard to do this. But they can have boundaries. But I haven't been shot by I don't know, so it won't to become. Yeah, it's given. And I go back to something.
He's trying to bring for keep black on the home. Since the kids are all different places, Jonathan Butkus. There's 4-inch for him.
Use glue. I'm just gonna use a tiny little bit just to hold it in place. And I'm gonna push it down far enough so that way if it does let loose, it'll still hold, or there's a piece of rock on the top of it. Stay over top, keep it in place.
Now where you go, power change.
Michael still.
Do you want some pictures on your phone?
My mom or dancing, so.
Okay.
What's most?
For your.
I haven't called you in 3 months. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. So, I talked to her during Thanksgiving. Okay, the other day. That's all I did.
Yep. Yeah.
It's kind of. That's true. Signage words. This was before you can do it. It's great. Interesting songs to it's
The lives.
Sure. So this.
Joe, it's over. Like just like was into the rest gate.
That's one law.
Like it to be it's one. It doesn't sit that's the front sector.
He's not a. That's why I'm so.
It's out and it's stuff. Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's pretty cool just how many places you can actually find these materials when they're out. Sinofield to Sinofield. Just having a brain that, you know, that convenience, right? Most people that go to the fish store, it's convenient, you know.
Yeah. You just gotta know what's it. That's right.
It's a surprising amount of the industry that's just branding, you know, other products. It's every industry for that matter.
I know, I just the other day, my son brought home some aspirin. Yeah. Yeah.